Hello and welcome to Pattern of Ages, a podcast about the Amazon Prime show Wheel of Time. My name is Tony, and joining me is Ryan.
Hey, I'm excited to start talking about the show.
Yeah, for sure. Today we'll be discussing and recapping episode 1 of Wheel of Time, titled Leavetaking. Please note there will be spoilers for episode 1, so if you haven't watched, you may want to pause this and come back later. However, we will avoid spoilers for all future episodes. We're going to be beginning the show with a recap of the episode. And then afterwards, we will discuss our overall impressions of the episode. Maybe before we dive into the recap, though, Ryan, you can give us an idea of how familiar you are with Wheel of Time in general.
Yeah, so basically, we know that the show has been kind of in the works for like 10 years or longer in different forms. But recently, last year, I started reading the books and read through the first 3 books in order to get started for the show. So
you've read the first 3 books.
Correct.
And so is your understanding that season 1 is going to be cover the entire first book, or?
Yeah. So the showrunner is Rafe Judkins, and he's been pretty active online, like talking to fans, answering questions, things like that. And he recently said that the first season will cover all of book 1, and it will also pull from parts of books 2 and 3.
Oh, really? That I didn't know.
Yeah, so
is that why you decided to read up through book 3, or did that
kind of. It wasn't intentional.
Yeah, but it works out pretty well.
Yeah, so then when the season's over, I'll probably read the next 3 books or something before season 2.
Right. So I have no background with Wheel of Time at all. I've never read the books. I've never even really discussed it with anybody. So I am going into this show completely blank. I have no really idea of what to expect. I know, basically I just know that it's a fantasy genre, and that it's based on a series of books that were not finished by the original author and were finished by Brandon Sanderson later after he had died. So I bring nothing to the table. Like all I know about the entire franchise is what I'm watching now.
But you did read some Brandon Sanderson books, right?
Yeah, I've read quite a bit of his stuff, like
Yeah,
the Mistborn stuff, and the first 2 books of The Way of Kings, and some other stuff here and there. So I'm a big fan of his, but I don't know how well that translates to Wheel of Time, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
So that being said, should we just jump into the recap?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, take it away.
So just to note, the director was Uta Brieswitz.
All right.
And it was written by Rafe Judkins, who I said was the showrunner.
Okay.
And fun fact, if you didn't know, Rafe was actually a contestant on Survivor.
Oh, that's right.
He was in Guatemala.
Yeah, that's great.
So I've kind of been a fan of him before I knew he was writing shows.
Yeah, we're both big Survivor fans, so we would find that interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. So the episode opens with the main character Moraine, and she's sort of like preparing like for something. She's getting dressed, and there's some narration talking about the breaking of the world.
Right. This is kind of the cold open for the entire series starts with her. So I guess we should take that as an indication that she is going to be a very important character. At least that's how I took it.
Right. And she's played by Rosamund Pike, who is, I believe she's an Oscar nominated actress.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've definitely seen her in plenty of movies. I'm not sure what I've seen her on in TV, but I've definitely seen her work in like films.
I don't know if she's done any TV shows.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I know she was in Gone Girl.
Yeah, it's a pretty good movie. Pretty hard to watch. It's the kind of movie I watch once and go, "Yep, that was a good movie," and I'll never watch it again.
Yeah. So the narration kind of says that there was sort of this event that happened in the mythology of this world where pretty much the magic was sort of broken, and it happened from someone called the dragon, and that's kind of how the show opens.
Right. So they indicating to us right away that the kind of central conceit of the story, at least that's how I took it, was going to
Right.
be the search for the dragon.
Yes,
Yeah.
because this person is reborn in the new age.
Yeah. And they don't tell us how that's known though, right? It's just something
Yeah.
that Moraine feels, I guess, in the in the vibe of the universe somehow.
Well, so we can kind of go to the next scene because that kind of builds off that.
Sure.
So there's a group of women that are hunting. It was a few men, but they were going after one man in particular.
Right.
And the main person is named Leandrin. And the group that she's with and that she's a part of is called the Aes Sedai.
Right.
And so they're hunting someone that they believe could potentially be the dragon.
Right. I have a lot of questions about that scene. So they're chasing the Aes Sedai in that scene are chasing two men, right? And then as the scene goes on, it's revealed that one of the men isn't really there? Question mark? Like I don't know. How am I supposed to interpret that scene?
Well, I think what's important to note is that this person they're hunting can apparently use magic.
Right. Can touch they said some the Moraine or not Moraine, but the woman who is leading the hunt
Mm-hmm.
said something about he's able to touch
The source.
the source. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
one thing, I don't know if you caught it, the reason why they were able to track this person down was because of when they were born.
Right. Born on a certain day.
Yeah, which is how they know, or how for somehow they knew that the dragon was reborn on a certain day.
Okay. Right.
So
So this man or men are running away
right.
from this group and they get cornered and um then it's revealed that I guess it's not two men, it's one man, although that's
Yeah.
left kind of unclear, but interesting. So I hope that that's an indication that will be revisited somewhere down the line. Like it seems weird that they would have a whole scene built around this person's potential delusion that if they're not going to like return to that in some way.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can't remember what happened to him at the end of the scene.
Yeah.
Which
Uh, yeah, it's probably not important. let's hope. Let's hope it's not important because neither of us apparently remember. Okay.
but
So what happens next?
so then it's revealed that Moraine and Lan, which is her sort of like her partner that she works with, and
Right.
um, we can kind of go into a little bit, but basically every Aes Sedai has what they call a warder. So
Is this
and
something that is talked about in the book?
yeah, so in this
Okay.
case, Moraine's warder is Lan,
Okay.
and it's sort of just someone that they have a certain bond with. So she works with him very closely.
So though they are just like for lack of a better term, professional partners.
Yeah.
Okay. Although they share a hot tub scene later on, so makes me wonder. Okay, go on.
So Moraine sort of they're nearby, and she is able to basically sense that Leandrin has basically taken this man who can potentially tap into the source, and she believes that whoever it is not the dragon, and so they decide they're going to go to a place called the Two Rivers, where there are four what she calls Tavarine, who could
Okay.
potentially be the dragon reborn.
Okay. So they decide that this person that they've cornered isn't, for whatever reason, she can tell that that person's
Yeah.
not the dragon, and they need to move on because she has four more potential candidates in mind,
Hmm.
and they're at the Two Rivers.
Right.
And Two Rivers is the name of the town, or is that just like the general area? Do you know?
So in the book there is a name of the town, but they didn't mention it in the show.
Yeah, it almost made it seem like they were positioning Two Rivers as like the name of the town, but I
Yeah.
wasn't sure. Yeah.
In the book it's called Edmund's Field.
Oh, good
But
to
I
know.
think
Okay.
that they just want to simplify it and call it the Two Rivers in
Yeah.
general. Like it's kind of like if you're familiar with Lord of the Rings, like there's Hobbiton and then the city, the Shire inside it. It's kind of like that.
Yeah. I would say it's almost exactly like that. Good
Yeah,
point.
well,
Yeah.
you'll see there's a bunch of Lord of the Rings um, kind of
Ref-
like parallels,
references. Yeah. Yeah.
which I think was intentional in the books.
Yeah. The author is of the author of the Wheel of Time series was a big fan of the Tolkien's
Yeah,
work, and so I think it's a lot of it's meant as an homage, or at least he's leaning very heavily on the sort of vibe that um, permeates through the Lord of the Rings
right.
series. Yeah.
So then we cut to a group of people that are in Two Rivers or nearby it. And we have the character Nynaeve, and she is what they call the wisdom of the town.
Right. So some kind of spiritual leader, I'm
Right.
guessing. Okay. Yeah.
Spiritual and also just knowledge
Okay.
in general.
So the educated spiritual leader of the Two Rivers.
And specifically the women's side, it's
Yeah.
called the Women's Circle.
Right. Right.
So they're having sort of like a ceremony for Egwene, and what they're doing is they're braiding her hair, which is basically a sign that she is now accepted into the women's circle.
And the women's circle is like a leadership group. Does that
Correct.
sound right? Okay.
It's kind of um, like a city council almost, but for the women.
Got it. Okay. And there's no equivalent for men, right? It's just
In the
in
books, there are.
oh, is there? Okay.
Yeah,
I wonder if
but
that'll come up later.
right, because they did not touch on that, probably because of time and stuff.
Yeah. Or maybe
But
they'll work it in later. Who knows?
yeah,
Yeah.
so they braid her hair and basically accept her in, and then her initiation kind of is that she pushes her off a cliff into a river,
Right.
which is kind of interesting.
Surprise. Yeah, and didn't seem like she saw it coming, so
Right.
must have not been disclosed to her that her hazing would include being pushed off a massive cliff and then
Right.
potentially drowning in a river, but details.
Hmm. So I
Okay,
think
so she gets pushed off a cliff and nearly and nearly drowns.
right.
Yeah.
Which, if you remember, that was the very first scene of the first teaser we got for the
Oh,
show.
yeah, good point.
So I think that's everything for that. And then we're introduced in a new scene to the character Rand and his father Tam. And
Did,
go ahead.
did you notice that the actor who plays Rand has an incredibly strong resemblance to um oh my god, what's his name? The guy who played Anakin in the Star Wars prequels.
I didn't notice that until you said
He looks, what is it? It's something Christian, right? I feel dumb because I can't think of the
Hayden Christensen.
Hayden Christensen. Like as soon as he came on, the guy, whoever plays Rand, the actor that plays Rand, came
Yeah,
on.
Joshua Stradowski.
Thank you. As soon as he came on screen, I was like, wow, does that guy look like a young Anakin Skywalker? And boy, I hope he's a better actor. I don't know. Maybe it was just me, but man, it really hit me right away.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the actor's from.
Yeah, I didn't recognize any of the like on-screen talent except for Rosamund Pike.
Mm-hmm. So they're basically walking in the mountains and sort of just talking, and it's introducing the characters. And they mention that something in the forest is pushing the wolves farther down, closer to the city.
Right. So that's a little bit of foreshadowing for the big action scene that we have at the end of the episode.
Right.
Yeah.
And you
Which is
mentioned
actually which is well done. Like kudos to them for
right.
dropping that in so early. And I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think twice about it until that big action scene happens at the end. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is what they were dropping hints about like way at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you mentioned actors. Did you recognize who plays Sam?
I don't think so.
I forget the actor's name, but he was in Game of Thrones. He played Roose Bolton,
Oh, yeah, I would have never gotten that. I would have never
Ramsay's
gotten that.
father.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The
I would have never.
actor is Michael McElhatton.
Yeah, I would have never put that together.
Well, he has a beard in this.
Yeah, I would have never. Unrecognizable.
So that's our first Game of Thrones actor crossover.
Right. What are the odds that's the one and only? Probably pretty low.
If there isn't one that we're not aware of.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be more.
So then the next scene is Rand and his father sort of make it to the city, and they go to the inn, which is called the Wine Spring Inn. And we're introduced to Rand's basically his two best friends, which is Matt and Perrin. And Matt is playing with some dice and basically making bets, and you can kind of see his personality in that scene. He's a little
Yeah. It seems like he's the troublemaker of the bunch, right?
Yeah.
Like he's a gambler who's not especially good at it, a bit of a thief that we see in that scene as well, and just kind of a little bit of a rogue.
Right.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Perrin is sort of the quiet one. And they mentioned that in the scene, they mentioned he has a wife, so he's kind of settling down.
Right.
And in the scene, he does mention that there's soldiers gathering somewhere else. I forget the city they referenced, but basically, there's some sort of military conflict that's going on somewhere else in the world.
Yeah, I'm sure that's another bit of foreshadowing for later episodes. I'm sure they will. I don't mean to jump ahead, but at the end of this episode, they decide to leave Two Rivers, and my guess is that they probably bump into some soldiers as they're leaving. I don't know, just a guess.
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. So yeah, just to be clear for anyone listening, like I don't know. This is honestly just a guess. Like I don't know. I've only watched episode 1. I have not watched any other episodes, and I've never read the books, as I said before. So
yeah,
I don't want anyone to feel like I'm dropping spoilers. I am just dropping guesses. And they might not even be good guesses. So we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. So then they're still at the inn, and it's nighttime, and and then Lan and Moraine show up, right? Do I have that right?
Yeah. So
okay. That's a pretty good scene, I think. A pretty good entrance. I think they kind of ham it up a little bit. Like they really wanted Moraine. They really wanted Moraine to have like a moment there as she's walking in the door, and
right.
I'm not sure if they it was kind of cringe. Like I'm okay, like just to be honest, I was like, okay, I can see what they're doing here. Like they want her to have a big entrance, like a big, she's coming into the inn, she's this woman, and she's super powerful, and her the Aes Sedai are kind of a thing of legend. I don't get the
Yeah.
impression. I don't get the impression that they are like mingling a lot with other people, and so they want that to have an impact. And so I see what they're going for, but it just seemed like pretty blatant. I'm
Well, I
not sure.
think what's important to note is that for the two rivers, they're kind of like it's like the country, like they don't get very much action. So
That's
it,
true. They say that at one point that they toward the end of the episode say something like you guys have been living as though nothing else in the world is happening, and
yeah.
you've kind of shut yourself away from the realities of everywhere, of what's going on elsewhere. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, you make a good point. So it's supposed to be even more impactful because these are people that have really kind of sheltered themselves away, and to
Yeah.
have these people kind of coming to town is very unexpected.
Right. And so she flashes her ring, which is sort of a signifier that she's an Aes Sedai. And that's what the innkeeper sees, and kind of like she stops and is like, oh, Moraine Sedai.
Right. Yeah.
So, and that's how she's able to get a room.
Yeah. Sedai is almost like I mean, it's not part of her name. Maureen Sedai is not her name, but it's
Yeah.
like it's like
It's like an
what's the
honorific.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
So she's
interesting.
showing respect when she shows the ring.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think Rand even has a comment when she comes in, like he's sort of shocked.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the idea is that they're all supposed to be shocked and slightly concerned.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, why is she here?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna find out.
Yeah. So the next scene has it's Matt's mom, I believe, is sick. And then I think it's his dad, that was sort of like talking to other women and just kind of like being a little standoffish to everyone.
Yeah.
I think I caught that correctly.
Yeah. That's what I remember.
Yeah. So Matt is kind of having to be more mature in this scenario because he's the one holding the family together because his dad is not really doing anything.
Yeah, and he has two younger sisters that he's
Yeah.
primarily concerned about, kind of sheltering um, from the irresponsible dad and the drunk mom. Mom's drunk and dad's out cavorting with
Right.
other women. So yeah,
So they're sort of just fleshing out the characters more
right,
for the
right,
most part. Because we also get on the next thing, Rand and Egwene is revealed that they are actually in a relationship, and they have been for it appears to be some time.
right.
And earlier in the earlier scene with Tam and Rand, uh, Tam talked about how when he was a kid, he used to bring her blackberries from the trail. So he's obviously been interested in her for a long time. And in the current scene, he actually brings her another one, kind of like repeating the story.
The tiniest little strawberry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I guess it was supposed to be a sweet and touching scene, but
yeah.
I thought maybe it was a little too on the nose, but okay.
Yeah.
So the next scene is our hot tub bath scene, right?
Which is funny. Did you watch The Witcher?
No, I've never seen it.
Okay. In the first episode of The Witcher, um, Geralt, the main character played by Henry Cavill, is also in a bathtub.
Oh, well, they like to put their actors in nearly nude in water, I guess is the takeaway here.
Yeah.
Can't be a fantasy show without a little bit of a bathtub scene,
Yeah. So,
apparently.
and we see that Lan is obviously very comfortable with Moraine.
Yeah, right. And then we see Moraine. Is this the first time we see Moraine use her power
I think so.
to heat up the water? I think it
Yeah.
is the first
It's the first
time.
time she uses what they call weaving in this world.
Okay. I don't think they mentioned that in the show. They don't think they use that terminology, do
No.
they? Okay. Good to know, though.
So you see like the pattern go across the water. It's
Yeah.
they call those weaves, like it heats up the water.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, and they did a good job, like visually,
Hmm.
of representing that because it does look like it's being woven through the water or through the air or what have you.
Hmm.
Later on, it's the air.
And they mentioned that one of the four, so we have Rand, Matt, Perrin, and Egwin. One of them could be the dragon.
Right.
They were all born around the same time in this city.
Right. And uh we are to presume that Moraine and Lan are there to try to figure out which one of the four is meant to be the dragon.
Yeah,
And that and go
we
ahead.
don't really know her motivations other than that she wants to find the dragon.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's an important point. Like once she finds the dragon, what then? Like,
Yeah.
is she meant to kill the dragon? Or is she meant to try to take the dragon to serve her own purpose, whatever that may be? It's not really spelled out.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're in the hot tub. We have that scene where she heats up the water.
Hmm.
And what's our next scene?
So I think the next scene, I forget where they're at, but Egwin basically tells Rand that she has been asked by Nynaeve to become her apprentice.
Right. And
Which,
Rand is really nervous about this.
yeah, because it means that she'll eventually become a wisdom,
Right.
and
And
she, with that, she can't get married.
yeah, that's his big concern.
Yeah.
No marriage, no babe, no children, no nothing. So that would
Yeah, and
completely ruin whatever hope that he has of having a like lasting relationship with her.
I think that's pretty much everything for that. And then
Uh,
so
and in the next scene, we're introduced to a brand new character.
right, so it's the morning, and we're introduced to the peddler, which is basically a merchant, and his name is Paddin Fane. And so he's coming into the village, and he's basically so they're celebrating a holiday around this time, and so he comes whenever there's a big event or anything like that, and he sells little trinkets to people while he's there.
Right. So did you get the impression this is supposed to be kind of like a New Year's sort of celebration? Because that was the
Uh,
vibe that I thought I got, but they never say really.
yeah, I believe it's like the start of a season,
Oh, okay.
so it might be
Like
like spring. I can't
sure.
remember.
Yeah, like a fall festival or a spring
Yeah,
festival or something. Makes
so they
sense.
call it Beltane.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, yeah, but it's a big event, so he comes there so he can basically get some profits.
Right.
And Matt comes up to him, and of course, he's trying to sell him something that apparently is not genuine. So he's trying to sell some gold.
Yeah.
That
Well, it was that bracelet that he stole in the inn that night
right?
before. So he's stolen that from whoever that woman was, and now he's coming to pawn it with Pat and Fane. And Pat and Fane's like, well, he tries to talk him down, like, oh, this is fake. And he's like, I don't think it's fake. He's like, okay, well, even if it's real, it's stolen. And he's like, well,
Yeah.
yeah. And
So
so
we
then
get
they,
more of a sense for Matt.
yeah, of this the kind of quality of his character or whatever, what his habits are and whatnot. And so they eventually settle on a price. Um, and that's our introduction to Pat and Fane.
Yeah. So, oh, there's a duplicate here. The next thing is Nynaeve, and she's basically cleaning up the area near where the wisdom like initiation was.
Yeah, it's like their I don't want to say spa, but it's like their ritual bath or something.
Hmm. And Moraine shows up, and basically Moraine's interrogating her and basically talking down to her the whole time and saying like, where do you come from? I know that you weren't born here. um, who are your parents? Obviously, like, she's obviously trying to see if she could be the dragon too. And Nynaeve, basically, she doesn't put up with anything she says, and she kind of says like, the person who raised me, the other wisdom, who she was apprentice for, was a great woman, and the Aes Sedai turned her down, and she will never forget that, what they did to her.
Yeah, that was a great. That's a great scene. A great scene with a
Mm-hmm.
lot of good character development there with that story and the background of why she will never trust Aes Sedai. Um, but I was way less confident than you were, like what her Moraine's
Mm-hmm.
motivation was there.
Yeah, you
Like,
kind of have to read into it.
yeah, like I wasn't sure if I was like, okay, does she think that Nynaeve is one of the like potential dragons, or is there something else going on here? Because she is almost making it sound like she got her position in some kind of way it's improper, because she keeps saying how young you are, you're very young to be doing this, and how is it that you found your, like how is it you found your way here to begin
Yeah.
with, and all this kind of stuff. And I was just left wondering, like, does she have some kind of, you know uh, some kind of information about her that she's trying to blackmail her with, or does she think that she could potentially be the dragon, or is there something else going on here? So I'm sure you're probably right. Like it's certainly very likely that she's just trying to feel her out for her potential to be the dragon. But I was definitely, as I was
That's a
watching
good
it,
point.
I was definitely like less confident in what exactly her angle was.
And I think that's like intentional. They don't want you to trust Moraine, and they don't want you to understand what her intentions are.
Yeah. Well, they did a good job of it for me
Yeah.
anyway. Confused me. I don't know if I am just simple minded or dense, but
No,
I was like, I'm not sure exactly what her angle is here, her motivation is, but you're probably right.
it's still a possibility, and
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know.
I just
So
like how Nynaeve is like, doesn't put up with it.
yeah, she's too busy to care about
Mhm.
whatever they have going on. I think she even says that. She's like, I have things to do. And
Mhm.
she's something like, cleaning this is a privilege, and
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed to be doing this sort of thing. So yeah. Okay. So moving on, our next scene involves Neve and Egwin, right?
Hmm. So they're sort of on the bridge, and they can basically sense something, and they're using the wind, and they're saying that the wind is basically talking to them, and they sense that something is coming.
So they are. So are we supposed to take away from that they are kind of tapping into the same um that they're tapping into the same thing that Moraine is tapping into at the very beginning, like where she is sensing stuff about the dragon and all that
Yeah,
stuff. So are
I
we
think they're leaving it open as a possibility.
right? So, or maybe they're kind of like they're the way in which they're attuned to that is just like a sliver of how Moraine is. Like Moraine seems like she can really pull a lot of information down from, sense using her powers or whatever. And so maybe we're supposed to think that Egwin and
Hmm.
though, and other people can kind of, all the people that are in the women's circle or whatever can kind of read the wind or listen to the wind or whatever, but it's really like a really rudimentary skill compared to like what
Hmm.
like Moraine can do.
And I think the difference is, like in the previous scene, Nynaeve said that her wisdom wasn't allowed to be trained by the Aes Sedai. So those women could potentially be as powerful as Moraine is if they were actually given the chance to train.
No, that's a good point. I completely forgot about that, but that's a good pickup. Okay, then we move on to the lantern scene.
Right. And so we have Rand and Tam, and they're setting up these lanterns for Beltane, and they're letting them go into the river. And Tam kind of says that it's a like symbolism for the Wheel of Time, which is this idea or religious kind of thought that they have that the entire nature of their world is cyclical, and they believe, and they kind of allude to Rand's mother, who has passed on, that will one day be reborn with the turning of the wheel.
Right.
If you caught that.
Yeah. And this whole scene is just a bunch, an excuse for some exposition about what the Wheel of Time is. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is the moment they've chosen to explain to the viewer what the Wheel of Time is and why it might be important to the characters in the story.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is going to be the central theme of the series, obviously, with
Well,
the
what
title.
what gives you that idea? Yeah. Okay, so then we have the whole Beltane celebration
Mm-hmm.
with the dancing and the merrymaking, but that doesn't last all that long.
Right. So we're in the woods, and
So you-
land.
so you're gonna have to explain to me what a fade is.
Mm-hmm.
They said that oh, there's a fade, and even Moraine says at some point around this time that she, or was it Moraine or Tam? One of them says something like there's a fade and Trollocs,
I think it's
and
Moraine. I'm not
yeah,
sure though.
and I was like, what is a fade supposed to be exactly? Do you have what can you
Mm-hmm.
tell me like what that means? What is a fade?
So without going too spoilery,
Yeah.
um, there's basically the forces of darkness are the Trollocs and the Fades, who work against the light, like the Aes Sedai, and the Fades themselves are these hooded creatures that are kind of like monsters that have no eyes, no nose, and they just have a giant mouth with teeth in it.
So they showed one of the fade then, like on a
Mm-hmm.
horse or something.
Right.
Is that right?
And
Okay.
you think of it like the Trollocs are the infantry, like kind of exposable,
Yeah, they're the muscle.
and the Fades are like the general.
Yeah. Okay.
So they lead these forces, and the Fade or the Trollocs are kind of like the foot soldiers.
Right. So Land says something like, I've seen, there's fades and Trollocs, and he says to Moraine, maybe we should just get out of here.
Right.
But as they're deciding what to do, the Trollocs attack during the Beltane festival.
Yeah. The one random man gets like a spear thrown at him or
Oh,
something.
right. Yeah. As he's dancing, the arrow penetrates him. And yeah. Nice scene. Like it's a good way to kick off an action scene, I guess. I'm sure it's been done in other movies or whatever, but
Mm.
it's still impactful.
And I will say the designs on the Trollocs were pretty cool.
Yeah, they kind of look like, I don't even know how to describe them really. They're almost kind of werewolfy, but much
And
bigger, like a troll and a werewolf
mm-hmm.
combined kind of. I'm not sure how to describe them.
It's kind of like they all have a different look too.
Yeah, they're all slightly different, aren't they? At least
But
slightly different.
basically, they're described as like being a hybrid of a human and an animal.
Okay.
So you get that look where they're like a beast.
Yeah, like a troll beast or something along those lines.
Hmm.
And so as the attack takes place, people are kind of scrambling. Matt goes for Egwin and Nynaeve, and a Trolloc attacks Tam and Rand, and
Hmm.
there's a fight. And then Tam pulls out okay, this is what I want to ask you about. Tam pulls out a blade
Hmm.
with what I thought was like a pelican, but you think it's a heron. You probably know it's a heron from the book. So he pulls out a blade with Tam does with a uh, heron on it, and then he begins to battle.
Hmm.
What is going on there? What are we supposed to think? Like, why does Tam have this blade, and
I
why
think
is
that's what you're supposed to ask.
right? So I'm asking you, like, what's going on there? Like, why does he have this blade, and why is he so good with it?
Yeah, I think you're left wondering, um, what has he been hiding from Rand? Like, is there more to this guy than he's just a farmer or whatever,
Right,
forager, hunter?
right. So
Um,
do you know about this from reading the books ahead? Is it
yeah.
explained in the books? Okay. So don't spoil it, but okay. But okay. But they do explain that, I guess, is what I'm really asking. Is at some point
Hmm.
we
Well,
should find out?
there's significance to the blade,
Okay.
is what
Guess
I'll say.
we'll leave it at that then. Okay.
Yeah,
So
there's
so
there's
they
something special about it, and the fact that he has it.
okay. Ooh, okay.
So, and I think they kind of show that Rand is like shocked that
Yeah,
his father can
absolutely.
fight off this Trolloc.
Right. I mean, Rand, I mean, the viewer is supposed to be shocked,
Yeah,
and Rand himself is shocked as well. So that
yeah.
works out. That works pretty well.
And just a side note, the Trolloc that attacks them is a fan favorite character.
Wow. It is. Well,
Yeah,
is there any
uh,
some reason why?
his name is Narg,
Okay.
and he actually talks in the book, and like, um, he just is kind of funny because he talks in third person about himself, and it's just very weird because no other Trollocs do that, and I think it had
Okay.
something to do with it being the first book.
Okay. Well, so the character in the books is fleshed out more than what is in the show.
Mm.
Because in the show, he just kind of shows up and they battle, and that's that. But sounds like
Yeah,
in the book, there's like a way more.
not
Um,
necessarily. It's just that one scene, but he talks and
oh,
it's
okay.
very um,
He's
memorable.
yeah. He probably has some boisterous
Yeah.
lines. Yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay, so he kills him with the blade. But Tam's injured,
oh well,
and
actually, Rand kills the Trolloc.
right. He comes from behind and stabs him with some kind of like piece of steel or so. I don't think it was a sword. It looked to me like it was a piece of like
Yeah, I can't
steel
remember.
or something they would have been using for like their blacksmithing or whatever.
And I think it's significant for Rand because he obviously hasn't killed anyone before.
Yeah, well, that's an important point. Most people,
So,
most people just don't go around killing Trollocs.
yeah.
So
So,
it's at least his first time killing a Trolloc.
so it's a turning point for all of these characters because the world is opening up to them.
Yeah, that's probably an important point. So they grab Rand grabs Tam and wants to get him to Nynaeve.
Hmm. Because the wisdom can basically heal people more than like a normal doctor could because of their knowledge. Like they have special herbs, stuff like that. So they want to get him to her.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, and then Moraine and Lan actually show up.
Right. So they didn't leave. We find out they didn't leave. And they are using Moraine is using her weaving
Hmm.
to fight with the Trollocs. I have some things to say about this. I have some questions.
Okay.
So she uses her weaving to fight some of the Trollocs, and Lan is, it turns out that Lan is quite a skilled warrior because he's kind of moving through these Trollocs with his sword and killing quite a
Hmm.
few of them.
Right.
But here's my question. And I guess this question is partially answered in the episode,
Hmm.
but earlier in the episode, one of the characters, I can't remember which, says something along the lines of, "Oh, the Aes Sedai are so powerful
Mm-hmm.
that one of them can turn the tide of a whole war." So, what when we see Moraine begin to fight in the town
Mm-hmm.
against the Trollocs, she seems powerful, but she doesn't seem that powerful. Like if she's as powerful as we were led to believe, if Aes Sedai are as powerful as we were led to believe earlier in the episode, then it seems like she would have had that whole situation wrapped up in like 30 seconds, because this is not,
Mm-hmm.
this was a dozen or maybe 2 dozen Trollocs, not an entire war. Like if they're powerful enough that they can just, literally turn the tide of an entire war, then just, taking out a dozen or 2 dozen Trollocs seems like it should have been like no sweat.
I think
So
there's a couple things to think about. So one is that I can't remember who said it either, but that like these people haven't seen an Aes Sedai in their life, or maybe not often if they have. So it's sort of that mythology thing going on, where they're thinking of these legends from before the breaking of the world, where things were different and the Aes Sedai were more powerful potentially.
okay, good
Uh,
point. That's actually 2 good points. One is that but perhaps the Aes Sedai were more powerful in the past. And the second point may be that these legends aren't necessarily true.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then the other thing is they could be referring to a war without Trollocs, like if it was just regular soldiers, like
That's true.
humans,
Yeah, that's a good point. Because the
because they're
Trollocs,
the dark power. So
yeah, and I mean, aside from that, they're fit like obviously way like physically larger than
yeah.
than normal human, and they also are imbued, I guess, with some kind of dark magic or dark power or whatever we want to call it. So
Mm-hmm.
that would make them harder to kill, I suppose.
But the other thing is like they just don't want, like they don't want to remove any tension from the show on the
Yeah,
uh,
why would they? Yeah.
kind of like the what's it called, like the Doylist perspective, when you're thinking about the narrative from the writer's point of view and not the plot point of view,
Yeah. So
because
they
it's sort
want
of
to,
that.
yeah, they want to avoid that. Okay, so there's a lot of fighting. We probably don't need to go through the blow by blow so
Mhm.
much of that, other than to say that um Perrin accidentally, well, he accidentally kills his wife, right, while
Yeah,
they're fighting with the Trollocs with an axe or something, or he
he
turns
basically
around.
guts her in the chest with his axe.
Yeah, whoops. Which actually brings me to something I did want to mention, was that I was happy to see that uh, this was obviously a big spectacle of an action scene, and oftentimes my complaints with these sorts of things are that they're just merely kind of eye candy for the viewer, and they don't really move the plot forward in any kind of like significant or interesting way. But at least with this, like there were some consequences, right? Like Perrin's wife does die.
Mhm.
Um, Rand's father, almost dies, and
Yeah,
the invade. I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but the invasion of Two Rivers does motivate characters to do things, right? So it
hmm
does like at least propels the plot forward in a way that not all big action scenes do. So I did really appreciate that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
will
So
say one thing that was kind of disappointing for me was, from the books. This isn't really a spoiler for Perrin. Well, one thing to note is that everyone is aged up from the books.
okay.
So, like,
Interesting.
I don't know how old they are in this, probably in their 20s or something. And Perrin is married in this, but in the books, he has not been married and he doesn't have a girlfriend even. So they introduced a female character only to kill her,
Oh yeah.
which is kind of disappointing. Like, you can't think of some better writing than to I mean, it's like the trope of fridging the female character
Yeah,
to
that's too
advance the
bad.
plot of the male character.
Yeah, that's too bad. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know that, and I guess no one would, unless you read the books, you would have no way to know that.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah, that's too bad. Because I just
and
got done saying, "Oh, wasn't that a great scene that had actual consequences?" And you're
yeah,
like,
it still did, but
well, it's somewhat problematic.
which I mean, sadly, his wife only had like a few lines, even. So it's like, was this really necessary?
Yeah, good point.
But I mean, it's obviously it does show the stakes, so maybe that's probably what they considered when they decided to do that.
Yeah, I guess so.
Um,
So after the fight, why don't you talk a little bit about
mhm.
the aftermath of the battle?
So everything's burning. Um, Egwin says that Nynaeve is missing. Now, I didn't catch it in the episode, but did they show what happened to her?
I don't think so.
Okay, so she's just missing,
Yeah.
and we don't know where she is. And Moraine basically says that each of the four of our main characters are going to go to the White Tower, which is where the Aes Sedai um, live, where they train.
Yeah, like their headquarters.
Yeah, and one of them is the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah. Um,
And it ends with a voiceover narration, which is actually the first line of the first book.
oh,
So it's the wheel of time turns, ages come and pass, memories become legends, legends fade to myth, all that.
that's
And
interesting.
every book in the series starts with that
Oh,
line.
interesting. I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Or
Neat.
at least the three I've read, so I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's probably a motif that carries on, I'm sure.
Yeah, so that's the cliffhanger, is that they now know that one of them is the dragon.
So, did you get the impression in that last scene that because they look and they see like, okay, there's like many hundreds of Trollocs still approaching,
Mm-hmm.
and I suppose there are more of the what are they called? The Trollocs and
The fades.
the Fades. So there's more, many hundreds of Trollocs, and I
Mm-hmm.
presume Fades as well. And so they're deciding to leave, right? They're like, we can't stay here because they're after one of
Yeah,
saying, Marine is saying they're after one of you four.
right,
So Marine wants them to leave because then they'll leave the town alone. Basically, they'll leave Two Rivers alone if you guys aren't
right.
here. So we should leave for that reason. But I also got the impression that they were kind of wanted to run to the White Tower as a way of for like protection as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are being pursued by this massive group of Trollocs and Fades, and if they don't get somewhere where they can defend themselves uh, or be helped in their defense, then they're gonna they'll get killed. So that's the kind of read I had on towards the end. I thought, okay, well, they're obviously leaving because of one of them could potentially be the dragon, but also like they're running for their life.
Yeah,
At least Moraine thinks so, and Lan, I suppose.
and we saw that Moraine was injured too
Right.
in the
Yeah.
battle.
Yeah.
So I think we're left wondering, like you said, is this why are they taking them there? Is it for protection, or what are their motives?
Yeah. And it really does kind of set up, like I get the vibe, and you don't maybe you don't need to say too much about it, but I do get the vibe this is a story that's very much like a journey story, kind of like Lord of the Rings is, where they're, kind of
Yeah,
moving from point A to point B. And so this kind of kicks off okay, we're going from, this is going to be the tale of a journey from Two Rivers to the White Tower. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So, like I said, there's parallels to Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's the recap of everything that happened in episode one. Do you have any thoughts about your like overall impression of the episode? Like, did you did you enjoy it? Was it what you thought it was going to be? Did you have problems within it? Problems with it at all? Or
Well, like I feel like it was very fast paced, which is to be expected since it's like an 800-page book. But I did enjoy it. Um, it was just cool seeing all the characters adapted, for the first time.
right?
So for me, that was cool. So obviously, this season will hopefully slow down a little bit as it gets going. But for the beginning, it felt pretty fast.
Yeah, I would say that I'm pretty conflicted overall about how my with regards to my overall impressions of it. I do like the story. Like when I think like going through the recap like we just did, like gives me a pretty good appreciation for the story as it developed over the episode.
Mhm.
But actually watching it, I was kind of frustrated by the look of the episode. I guess the look of the series. I guess I can't imagine they're gonna really change it much.
Oh,
um it's kind of, I know it's kind of cliche at this point for fantasy series to be kind of have like a grim dark sort of look and feel.
so you mean specifically in the final battle of
I
the
just
episode?
no, I mean like it's in general. Like so my impression of the visuals in the episode are that they're very they seem very clean to me,
Mm-hmm.
like very precise, like everything is lit fairly brightly, all the colors really pop. um
Do you think that comes from how they filmed it? Like if they're filming it digital or?
I don't know. I mean, it's got to be a choice, right? Like the director or the showrunner, mm, obviously, or maybe the director of photography or whoever, or all of them in combination, definitely made like an aesthetic choice to make the give to have a certain look, like that, that
Mm-hmm.
this is the way our world is going to look on camera. And it's something about the choice, and I think a lot of it has to do with the lighting for me. Like just the way everything is lit seems very makes things look very clear. I don't know if I can't think of a better way to put it other than everything seems very crisp and clear,
Mm-hmm.
and everything is very, there's not a lot of shadow. Like even the night scenes are pretty bright. um
I
and
wonder if
so
this is just a trend that's happening in television shows or streaming shows because I have heard similar things said about like Netflix shows.
oh, it could be, I don't know. um yeah, I don't know, I can't speak to that exactly, but there's something about the look, like the look
Mm-hmm.
of the show that looked very clinical somehow, like it all seemed kind of, it all seemed like new stuff that was made to look old rather
Mm-hmm.
than like something that's really been lived in for a long time. And I did notice that a lot of I'm not sure exactly which sets were physical sets and which were like green screen sort of
Mm-hmm.
CGI'd in. And I tried to kind of think about it as I was watching it without getting distracted by it. But my impression is that some of the sets that seemed to me like they are probably physical sets, like the blacksmith, like Rand and Tam's
Their house.
blacksmith house or whatever. And then the other, what was the other house we saw? Was it Perrin's house?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it yeah, is it
And the end.
yeah, and the inn also. They seemed to be like, there seems to be a lot of space. Like there's a lot of square footage in in those structures. And I think that also gave it that look of kind of a look of being like very comfortable. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I'm struggling a little bit on how to describe it, but it seemed like they built the sets. I'll say this. I wondered if when they built the sets, they made them very big to accommodate the cameras and the lighting and the crew and all that stuff, so they took into consideration a lot of the practical aspects of filming
Hmm.
the scenes, and without considering how that looks on camera. Because when I think of fantasy series like this, like Primitive, like, these are, this is a world without electricity, right? This is a world without guns.
Hmm.
This is a world without, steam power or anything like that. It seems, anyway. um it seems to me that everything is like pretty big and spacious, and like they really are living like pretty well, like pretty easily. And they have a lot of space, they're building big buildings, and everyone has a big, fairly big house.
Hmm.
And then when I think about other books and shows in like the fantasy genre, they're not it's not often depicted that way. Like the houses are small because you have to build them by hand, and you have to haul rock and brick,
Hmm.
and thatch the roof by hand, and all this, and heat it and cool it, and like all those kind of practical
Yeah, that's
considerations.
interesting.
So I feel like, why, like, they really, it was just something I noticed like right away. I was like, these areas are really big. Like in Game of Thrones, it's a little different. Like this, a lot of the sets and stuff are very big because they're in castles, you know.
Yeah.
But they're not in castles here. Like they're just like in small little podunk village, out in the middle, and that's, allegedly, or we're meant to believe is out in the middle of nowhere. So I don't know. So I was just a little bit torn about like the visuals of it. It looked it's not that it looked bad. It just looked a little bit just a little different than I thought it was going to look.
Yeah, I could see other people having similar problem, but
But other than
I
that, I
mean,
thought it was pretty, my overall impressions are fairly positive. I think that I think that it's somewhat difficult to judge TV shows just in general,
mhm,
by their first episode, because a first episode of a TV show is really pulling a lot of weight, because they need to introduce you to all the main characters. They need to
mhm,
introduce you to what is going to be the main plot. They need to set up the friction of the story. Who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, what is the conflict, what is the setting, et cetera. So first episodes are often have to get all that information conveyed to the audience, and it's difficult to do it in a way that doesn't come across as rushed or forced, or just filled with like a ton of exposition.
mhm.
So viewing it through that lens, like I think they did a pretty good job here. They did dump a lot of information on us, but it never felt like, what I'll call like a big info dump, where someone just talks for 5 minutes and tells you all the things
Mhm.
that would have been better shown rather than just told. Like when they were talking about the Wheel of Time, that was probably the closest they got to something
Mhm.
like that. Otherwise, and I don't know how you show that, but it seemed like that was a scene that definitely existed uh just to alert the viewer of the concept of the Wheel of Time. But
Right.
otherwise, I think they did a fairly good job of it. So my overall impression of it is pretty high. I'm not sure what I would give it if I was giving it a score,
Mhm.
maybe like a B. And I don't mean that to be like dismissive, it wasn't. I think there's probably better episodes coming up. But I don't think this episode was bad. I think it was probably better than average first
Mhm.
episode, especially of a fantasy series. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything
Yeah.
that you want to add?
Yeah, I think I liked it. Other than what we said before about the writing, that was kind of frustrating. But
Yeah. One thing I didn't mention was one of the things I didn't necessarily care for was the depiction of the weaving during the battle,
mhm.
when
Moraine.
Moraine is like kind of like leaning back and kind of like whipping all the magic around her and
Hmm.
kind of zoning out. Like I don't know what the term is for
Hmm.
her when she kind of goes into her weaving mode, but I didn't necessarily care for that. The I didn't necessarily care for the look of that. Like I think that has been done a lot like that. And I know they're working from like source material. So they're working from the books and they probably
Hmm.
don't want to deviate that much from the books because I have a feeling that these sorts of things are described in great detail in the book because the books have a reputation for being very detailed.
Hmm.
And so I guess the people put in doing the show were limited in what maybe they felt comfortable doing, but I wish that the process of the weaving happened a little bit more quickly and that they didn't drag it out. Like I felt like they were really like milking that
They,
scene
yeah,
for the the big close-ups of her floating and her eyes kind of glazing over and the magic weaving around and doing all that stuff because I didn't really I didn't really feel like it added that much tension to the scene. Like I was never worried that she wasn't going to be able to do the magic. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
it
Like
was
I
kind of
always,
show off a little.
yeah, it felt like an excuse to like show off some visuals that like I wasn't really that we
Mm.
didn't really need. I think it would have been more impactful if she could have been like quickly doing these things and adding like a little bit more urgency to the scene rather than just showing her kind of floating around and trying to make us
Yeah.
wonder, oh, is she going to be able to pull it off in time? And I really had no doubt that she was going to, so I didn't really do a lot for me. But yeah, I did want to mention that.
Yeah, I think the effects were, it could be a little better, but it might come with a second season, like more budget. So.
Yeah, let's hope. Or maybe just in the latter episodes, like you never know. Like
Yeah.
they even the people doing the show kind of look back on it and what worked and what didn't work, and they make changes as they go.
Yeah.
So who knows?
The other thing I'll add was the music was good. The composer is Lauren Balfa, I think is how you pronounce it.
Okay.
And he did the music for Black Widow. Um, he did the Assassin's Creed games,
Oh,
a few other things.
interesting.
But I felt like, so they have like the ancient tongue in the music, and it felt like they were doing their own thing. Like they weren't trying to copy Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings. Like they're taking the music in their own direction. So
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
That is interesting. Like I have to say that I did not notice the music at all,
Yeah.
which when I say that I mean that as praise
Hmm.
because usually when I notice music in a show or a movie it's because it's bad. Like it's like it's taking
Yeah.
away from the scene somehow. So to say that I didn't notice it, like I actually mean that as a compliment. So yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes, but I mean, I think the episode did its job, like setting up everything,
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, I think that's all we have. If you have questions for us, we do have an email address set up. It's called pattern, or the email address is patternoftheages@gmail.com. Patternoftheages@gmail.com. You can email us with questions or comments, and we can address those on the show as needed. And we thank you for joining. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And we will see you next time. Say bye, Ryan.
See ya.